Please be seated. The court is now in session. Today, the chamber hears testimony of a witness to TCW 897. We also have a reserve witness to TCCP 258 today. Ms. Jie Sui-Huang, please report the attendance of the parties and other individuals to today's proceedings. Mr. President, for today's proceedings, all parties to discuss are present. Mr. Nguyen Chie is present in the holding cell downstairs. He has waived his right to be present in the courtroom. The waiver has been delivered to the greffier. The witness who is to testify today, namely to TCW 897, confirms that to the best of his ability, he has no relationship by blood or by law to any other two accused, that is Nguyen Chie and Khieu Samphan, or through any other civil parties admitted in this case. The witness took an oath before the Iron Club Statute this morning, and he has Mr. Mom Ratir as his duty counsel. Both are ready to be called by the chamber. Thank you. President, thank you, Mr. Jie Sui-Huang. The chamber now decides on the request by Nguyen Chie. The chamber has received a waiver from Nguyen Chie, dated 29 November 2016, which states that due to his health, that is headache, back pain, he cannot sit or concentrate for long, and in order to effectively participate in future hearings, he requires to waive his rights to be present at the 29 November 2016 hearing. Having seen the medical report of Nguyen Chie by the duty doctor for the accused at the ECCC, dated 29 November 2016, which notes that today Nguyen Chie has a constant lower back pain when he sits for long, and recommends that the chamber shall grant him his request so that he can follow the proceedings remotely from the holding cell downstairs. Based on the above information and pursuant to Rule 81.5 of the ECCC internal rules, the chamber grants Nguyen Chie his request to follow today's proceedings remotely from the holding cell downstairs via an audio-visual means. The chamber instructs the AV unit personnel to link the proceedings to the room downstairs so that Nguyen Chie can follow. That applies for the whole day. And before I invite the witness into the courtroom, the chamber received an email that the defense counsel for Khieu Samphan would like to make an oral request concerning the witness to TCW 1063, that is the upcoming witness, and for that reason the chamber hands the floor first to the defense team for Khieu Samphan to make this oral submission. You have the floor.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning to all of you. A very brief request. Indeed, we have a certain number of documents, in this case file, related to witness 1063, who was a civil party, or who is a civil party, in case file 002, and was also a party to another investigation. The chamber has granted a request to admit into evidence complementary information, or supplementary information, the civil party statement, E3, 10670 as it stands now. But in the case file, we don't have the civil party application as he filled it out in the other investigation. So we have it in 002, but we don't have the civil party document for the investigation which is currently underway. So I understand that this person is also a civil party in the other case file for the investigation, and so there should be also the civil party statement in that case file. We don't know what the document number would be in the investigation underway, but if the civil party lawyer or someone else could supply us with that number, that would assist us, but that would supply us with supplementary information of the statements of this civil party, and we would then have access to it. So I will repeat, E3/10670 is additional information, but we don't have the civil party's statement in the other investigation underway, which I believe is case 004. So that's my brief request, that we could be provided this document either by the civil party lawyer in question or anyone else who has access to this information from the OCIJ. Thank you.
International Deputy Co-Prosecutor, you may make an observation or response to the request made by case upon counsel.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, certainly someone from our office will check into that also right away. Often, I can tell you that often the civil party applications that are filed in the other cases are literally, they've just take the exact same papers that were filed in their case 2 civil party application and just refile them in the other case. That is often what takes. I don't know whether that is what took place here, but someone in our office will check and see whether the civil party application in the other case is in any way different, or whether it's the identical document.
And what about the lead co-lawyers for civil parties?
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. President. We are in the same situation as the accused upon defense. We do not have access to the documents in case file number 4. We take note of what the co-prosecutor will be verifying. If there is a similar document in case 004 for the civil party, which is similar to the one we have in case 002, so we very much welcome the co-prosecutor's offer to verify that.
And what about the defense counsel for Nuon Chea? Do you wish to make any observation or to respond to that submission?
No, thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you for the remarks made by the parties, and the chamber will consider this issue and issue a decision in due course, that is prior to hearing the testimony of witness 1063. And we do not know that this person was a civil party, because in the document that I have, this witness is summoned as a witness and not as a civil party, and for that reason, I will look further into this matter. Court officer, please usher the witness and the duty counsel into the courtroom. President, good morning, Mr. Witness. What is your name? Witness, my name is Saint Litain. President, thank you, Mr. Saint Litain. And do you recall when you were born? President, allow me to remind you that when you see the red light on the tip of the microphone, it means that you can speak, so that your voice will go through the systems to the parties, and in particular it will go through to the interpreters, so that it can be interpreted into English and French. And after a question put to you, please leave a slight pause so that you can prepare yourself before you can respond, and at the same time that is to allow the microphone to be operational. And there needs to be a slight pause between question and answer session, that is to ease the interpreters. And witness, do you know when you were born? Answer, I was born on 17 July 1946. Question, and where were you born? Answer, I was born at Bresbow village, Kampong Svai Sub-District, Kampong Svai District, Kampong Thom Province. Question, where is your current address? Answer, at present I live at Old Taprang village, Pai Lin Sub-District, Pai Lin District, Pai Lin Province. Question, and what is your current occupation? I worked in the plantation. Question, what are the names of your parents? Answer, my father is Lot Singh and my mother is Lum Hup. Question, what is the names of your wife and how many children do you have? Answer, my wife is Dip Kon and we have 3 children. President, thank you, Mr. Saint Litain. The greffier made an oral report that you are not related by blood or by law to any other two accused, that is Nguyen Chi and Khieu Sampon, or to any of the civil parties admitted in this case. Is that information correct? Answer, yes, it is correct. Question, have you taken an oath according to your religious belief before the Iron Club statue this morning? Answer, yes, I have. President, the Chamber would like now to inform you of your rights and obligations as a witness. And Mr. Litain, regarding your rights, as a witness in the proceedings before the Chamber, you may refuse to respond to any question or to make any comment which may incriminate you. That is your right against self-incrimination. Your obligations. As a witness in the proceedings before the Chamber, you must respond to any questions by the bench or relevant parties except where your response or comments to those questions may incriminate you, as the Chamber has just informed you of your right as a witness. You must tell the truth that you have known, heard, seen, remember, experienced, or observed directly about an event or occurrence relevant to the questions that a bench or parties pose to you. Mr. Witness, have you been interviewed by investigators from the Office of the Co-Investigating Judges? If so, how many times, when and where? Answer: I was interviewed once in Thailand. Question: and do you recall the date of that interview? Answer: it was in April 2004. President: the ECCC was not yet established in 2004. So please tell the Chamber whether you were interviewed in 2004 by staff from this ECCC or whether they were staff from DC camp. Answer: I do not recall that. However, I remember that I was interviewed once in Thailand. Please try to recall the year besides 2004, because this tribunal was not established in 2004, and indeed it was established in 2006. I cannot recall the year. President: and have you read or reviewed the written record of your interview with the ECCC staff in order to refresh your memory? Answer: I have read it, but I cannot recall the year clearly. President: that is all right. And you said you have read your written record of your interview, and please tell the Chamber, to the best of your knowledge, whether your written record of your interview that you made with ECC staff in Thailand is consistent with what you actually said to the ECC staff back then. Answer: yes, it is correct. President: sitting next to you is your duty counsel that the Chamber provides you through visual per your request. And pursuant to Rule 91b of the ECCC internal rules, the Chamber hands the floor first to the co-prosecutors before other parties, and the combined time for the co-prosecutors and the little co-lawyers are 2 court sessions. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, Your Honors, Counsel, and Mr. Witness. I'll be asking you some questions this morning on behalf of the co-prosecutors. And I'd like to start, if you could tell the court whether you were related to Pol Pot, whose original name was Salat Sar, And if so, how are you related to him?
I am Pol Pot's nephew.
And is it correct that your father was the elder brother of Pol Pot?
Yes, that is correct.
Are you also related to a person who has testified in this courtroom in the previous trial, the first trial against these accused, a person named Salat Ban, alias So Hong? Are you related to him?
So Hong is my elder brother.
Can you tell the court when, that is, what year you first joined the Khmer Rouge Revolution and who introduced you to the revolution?
I joined the revolutionary movement in 1970.
Did you become a member of the party, and if so, when?
No, I did not become a party's member.
What did you do when you first joined the revolutionary movement in 1970?
In 1970, I was a soldier.
And were you a soldier in a particular organization, a particular zone, army, sector army, district army? Can you identify for us what part of the military you joined in 1970?
In 1970, I was in the Vietnamese army. I was simply a combatant. I did not hold any rank.
You said the same thing in your OCIJ statement, and I wanted to just get some clarification. When you say you were part of the Vietnamese army, were you actually part of a Vietnamese army unit, battalion, or were you part of a Khmer Rouge military unit that was fighting with the Vietnamese? Can you clarify that for us?
It was the Vietnamese army. And they joined the resistance with the Tribunal regime, says the witness.
At any time were you part of the North Zone Army that was commanded by Kai Pak?
In 1973, I returned to join the army in the North Zone.
And how long were you part of the Army in the North Zone?
I was there for a bit over 3 years.
When you were a soldier in the Vietnamese army, where were you located? Where were you stationed during that period of time?
Mostly at the time we were stationed in Kampong Thom province, as well as in Siem Reap province to provide protection for Angkor Wat.
And let me turn to the position that you talk about the most in your interview. When was it that you were first assigned to work as a guard or messenger for the Khmer Rouge leaders?
After I got wounded, I could no longer fight as a soldier, so I was reassigned to the guard unit.
Do you remember what year it was when you were injured and reassigned to the guard unit?
It could happen in 1974, although I am not really clear about the year.
Thank you for qualifying that. In 1974, or whenever it was you were assigned to the guard unit, where were you located? Where was it that you worked in this guard unit?
It was in Chamka Le in Kampong Cham province.
And what leaders were based at the place where you worked in this guard unit?
The leader in charge of that place were Pol Pot, Nuon Chia, Ieng Sari, Khieu Samphan.
And you said that this was in Chamkar Lu. Do you remember a party base or headquarters that was located near the Stung Chinit River around the border of Kampong Thom and Kampong Cham provinces? Is that the area that you were located in when you were guarding these leaders? somewhere near the Chinit River, near the border of Kampong Thom and Kampong Chum.
ខ្ញុំចាំមិនច្បាស់ទេកន្លែង
I cannot recall it clearly about the exact location of the headquarters.
Do you remember whether that that location, the headquarters, had a name, a code name, and if so, what was its name? What was the name of the office or base where these leaders were located in 1974?
There was no code or name for it. I'm not aware of it.
And still speaking of 1974, this location where you were working in a guard unit for the top leaders, was your brother So Hong, was he located at the same location, the same headquarters at that time?
Yes, he was also there.
Now, you've indicated that the leaders at this location included Pol Pot, Nuon Chea, and Khieu Samphan. Can you tell us what you observed them doing in 1974? Did they live and work together? What can you tell the court about what you observed in terms of Pol Pot, Nuon Chea, and Khieu Samphan in this 1974 time period when you were first assigned to the guard unit?
I did not grasp about their important affairs, but I observed that they held meetings quite often.
And who attended these meetings that you observed?
They held meetings among the 4 individuals.
I want to ask you about some testimony we heard in the first trial on the 30th of July 2012 from a person, witness named P. Pun. This is document E1 98.1, and I'm going to read an excerpt from 1404 to 1406 in the afternoon. This is what witness P. Pun said about this period, pre-75 period. Question: from 1971 to 1974, did Khieu Samphan and Pol Pot meet frequently? Answer: from 1971 to 74, they met rather often. There were some times when they were separated because the office was located in different sides, but later on the offices were moved close to one another. Then Khieu Samphan came to work in the office adjacent to Pol Pot's office. And I also indicated the other day that sometimes they worked together among 3 of them, Uncle number 1, Uncle number 2, and Khieu Samphan. And then continuing in the next answer, quote, "They met in the morning when they had breakfast. They had gruel together, and then they started meetings from, say, 8:30 to 11. And then during lunchtime, they also met. And then they had a short break, and then the work would resume in the afternoon. And then, following the conclusion of the day's work, they would go back to their respective location, and they had dinner separately." End of quote. Does this refresh your memory at all, Mr. Witness? Is it correct that these three leaders, Pol Pot, Nuon Chea, and Khieu Samphan, ate and worked together on a daily basis while you were a guard in 1974?
Yes, I think the statements you have raised is correct.
I want to turn now to the period after 17 April 1975. Did Pol Pot, Nuon Chea, and Khieu Samphan continue to live and work together after liberation, that is, after 17 April 1975, when you relocated to Phnom Penh?
I cannot recall it clearly regarding their living conditions. I cannot recall it clearly.
Let me ask you, why don't we start with a more general question then? Can you tell us where you went and what you did after liberation, after the Khmer Rouge took control of Phnom Penh on 17 April 1975?
When Phnom Penh was liberated, I was on the mobile. Initially, I was at the Ministry of Defense, and then was relocated to a location near the embassy, Chinese embassy. And then I was sent to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and I was in the section for receiving guests. So I was relocated from places to places.
When you were initially at the Ministry of Defense and then sent to a location near the Chinese embassy, what were you doing? What was your assignment or work during that period?
Correction from interpreter. Initially, he was at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, not Ministry of National Defense. Over there, I was facilitating with the foreign affairs of the relations between China and Cambodia, and also was facilitated in receiving guests and assisted works of other sections.
Was there a period, point when you were assigned once again to work as a guard for the leaders at an office known as K1? And if so, when was it after 17 April 1975 that you were assigned to work as a guard at K1?
After I left the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, I went to K1 and I worked as a guard. It was in 1993 or 1994, said the witness.
Let me, I'm sorry, I don't know whether it was a translation issue. The translator in English said 1993 or 1994. We're talking about the Khmer Rouge, the period they were in power from April 1975 to January 1979. Let me ask you this way. About how many months after liberation, how many months after 17 April 1975 was it that you were assigned to be a guard at the K1 office?
I cannot recall it clearly about the exact date.
Can you give us a rough approximate estimate of how long you worked at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs before you were assigned to K1 as a guard?
It was around 1978.
Let me read to you, Mr. Witness, from your OCIJ interview. This is document E3/462, E3/462, Khmer ERN 00204-024, English 00223-563, and French 00491-959. This is what you said in your interview back in 2007. Quote, question, when Phnom Penh fell on 17 April 1975, where were you and what were you doing? Answer, in 1975, I was in the leadership unit as both a messenger, courier, and guard for the leadership. Question, what does leadership unit mean? Was that an office? Answer, it was the site of the leadership. I don't remember what office it was, but I was a guard for all of that office. Ordinarily in an office, there is an office guard unit guarding all the leaders, including Pol Pot and Khieu Samphan. Nuon Chea and Ieng Sary were there as well. There were those four. And then you continue. Before 1975, I was in Chamkar Lu. After 1975, I was in that same guard unit, but in Phnom Penh, in the vicinity of the Tonle Sap row house in which those leaders lived. The leaders were in different rooms in the same row house. That office was called Office K1. My duties then were still those of a guard and messenger. End of quote. Is this testimony correct, Mr. Witness? Is it correct, as you told OCIJ, that you worked as a guard and messenger for the leaders at K1 beginning in 1975?
As I told you earlier, that before I went to K1, I worked in a section that was part of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I was responsible for receiving guests and assisting with the work of relations with China.
I understand. There is nothing in your OCIJ interview about having worked at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, but I understand. My question to you is, was it a short time that you worked at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, so that you began working at K1 sometime in 1975, or did you work at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for a longer period of time, a number of years?
I worked at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for a while, for a short while. Then I was sent to K1.
And when you were sent to K1 and when you worked there as a guard and messenger, who were the leaders who you saw who lived or worked there on a daily basis?
K1's leaders include Pol Pot, Nuon Chea, Khieu Samphan, and Ieng Sary.
And can you describe for the court where K1 was located? What was the location? Where was the K1 office in Phnom Penh, where you worked as a guard and messenger?
It was located at the building, at the currently white building in Tonle Basak area.
Do you remember, in addition to K1, do you remember another office or another location that was used by the same leaders that was called K3?
No, I have never heard of this name.
Let me read to you an excerpt from an interview given by Khieu Samphan to the Office of Co-Investigating Judges on this subject, to see if it refreshes your memory. This is interview E3/37, E337, Khmer ERN 00156 676 through 677, English 00156-755, French 00156-682 through 683. This is what Q Sampan told the co-investigating judges. Question: what does the reference to K1 and K3 mean? Answer: it refers to the place of living or place of work of the standing committee members. K1 was on the Tonle Sap riverfront, south of the National Theatre building. K3 office was located just behind the Royal Palace. It can be identified as a group of houses which were delineated by Pasteur Street and Kampuchea Krom Street, Dr. Han Street, and another parallel road. As for myself, I lived in K3 after I had stayed at K1 for 2 or 3 months, after we moved from the Silver Pagoda in the Royal Palace. In fact, most of the leaders lived in K3, Ieng Sary, Son Sen, Noon Chea. As for Pol Pot, once in a while he stayed in K3 because he had to be careful and cautious all the time. It was not uncommon for him to change his house from one place to another. He also lived in K1. End of quote. Does that realize we're talking about a long time ago, Mr. Witness? Do you remember this location that was west of the Royal Palace, where there were houses which the leaders used for residences and work offices? Do you remember that location?
No, I was not familiar with those locations.
So I will focus my questions with you on the K1 location that was near the Tonle Sap riverfront. You've indicated that the leaders who you saw living or working there were Pol Pot, Noon Chea, Q Sampan, and Ieng Sary. Were there any other leaders in addition to those 4 who you regularly saw at K1?
Besides the 4 individuals, sometimes I saw the zone secretaries come to visit, but it was occasional.
What about Son Sen? Did you know who Son Sen was, and did you see him at K1?
I never saw Son Sen at K1.
How many other people, how many people in total worked as guards or messengers at the K1 office?
I cannot tell you about the exact number, but I can tell you about the estimated number. It was around 20 individuals. And these 20 individuals work in the inside of the compound, but there were also guards outside the perimeters whose number I cannot remember.
And do I understand correctly from your answer that you were one of the guards who worked inside the compound?
Yes, I was inside the compound.
Are you able to read, Mr. Witness?
Yes, I can read in Khmer.
Mr. President, with your leave, I'd like to provide to the witness a document that's in evidence, E3/858, E3/858, which is a list of people who worked at the K offices, including K1 and K3. With your leave, may I provide this to the witness?
President, yes, your request is granted.
Mr. Witness, the initial 2 pages of this document, E3/858, contain first a list of people who worked at K1, and then a group of people who worked at K3. And I want to start with the 16 people who are listed under K1. I've highlighted some of the names that I'm going to ask you about to make it easy for you. But the first name I want to ask you about on the K1 list is number 5 on that list, which is Teng, alias Pool. Is that you, Mr. Witness? Was Pool another name you used during the regime?
At that time, I was known as Pool. Teng was a later name.
Now, in this list, this list of people from the K1 office, you are described as a writing assistant. Is that one of the functions that you performed at K1? And if so, can you explain what you did to the court as a writing assistant?
I was not an assistant.
Perhaps there's a translation error here of some sort. Is it correct that you did not help, while you worked at K1, you didn't help write documents, but perhaps you were involved in helping to deliver documents? Is it correct that one of your tasks at K1 was to help deliver documents sent from K1?
No, I did not have that specific duty. President, I think there is probably a misunderstanding. The term of chai or distribution, and in terms of capacity as a messenger, it means you deliver messages. But the Khmer term chai, it means distribution. It could have a wider scope than the capacity of a messenger.
Thank you, Mr. President. I suspected that there was a problem with the English translation. We'll come back and talk about your specific tasks in a little bit. Let me continue with some of the other names on the list, if you could look at the list again. The first person in the list for K1, number 1, is a person named Lin, who is identified as the joint chairman for offices K1 through K4, and who was married. His wife's name was Sem, a woman who has testified previously in this court. Do you remember a person named Lin? He also used the name Ken, who was the deputy of Pong.
Yes, I know him, though it is not that clear to me. However, the other name on the list is Tan and not Kan, and as for this Tan, I know him. But for Lin, the name is not that clear to me.
All right. Tan is number 2 on the list for K1. Can you tell us what Tan's role was at K1?
These people were the inside guards, so they were all guards. They performed the same role as I did.
Now, going back to the description for Lin, number 1 on the list for K1, after identifying his wife, the document says, quote, Pong arranged the marriage, end of quote. Do you remember marriages being arranged by Pong at the K1 or other K offices?
I was not aware of the arrangement for Lin to get married. I did not know as when it happened.
Were you married during the Khmer Rouge regime? And if so, can you tell us how your marriage came about?
I got married previously because I liked the woman.
And when you say you were married previously, do I understand that you were married before you relocated to Phnom Penh in 1975? Or was it after you came to Phnom Penh in 1975 that you married?
I got married when I was at the K1.
And who was the woman who you married, and how did you know her?
we were introduced to each other, and we then liked each other, and that we could become a husband and wife, and for that reason the marriage arrangement was made for us.
Was your wife someone who also worked at K1?
No, she was not at the K1. She worked at the Ministry of Social Affairs and Health.
Then who was it that introduced you to her?
It was the chief, and in fact it was Intirat who introduced us.
And my last question on the subject of your marriage, how long was it after you were first introduced that you were married? And who conducted your marriage?
We got married and became husband and wife until we left Phnom Penh, and the marriage was organized for us by the guard unit.
And who was it that presided over your marriage? Who conducted the marriage?
It was not a major event, and other guards participated in the event.
Were there other guards who were married at the same time as you? And if so, how many other couples were married at the same time?
No, we were the only couple.
And I never got a answer to one of the questions I asked you, which was how long was it after you were introduced that you were married? How many days, how many weeks, how many months? Can you tell us?
After my wife and I consented to the marriage, and about a week after that, then the marriage was arranged.
All right, let's go back to the list of people at K1. I have a few more names to ask you about. Number 3 on the list of people from K1 in document E3 858 is a person named Sin, who is described as chairman of the guard when uncle travels. Do you remember this person, and can you tell us what his function was at K1?
regarding the guards at K1, they were under the supervision of Pong. As for Sun, he was not a chairperson nor a deputy, because we all received orders from Pong.
Thank you for that clarification. And number 9 on the list of people at K1 is, if you look at number 9, is Lang, who is described as uncle's driver from Kulan District, Sector 103, which I believe is Prebahir or Siem Reap. Is Lang, in your OCIJ interview, you talk about a person named Lang who was Pol Pot's driver. Is this the Lang who you have identified as Pol Pot's driver?
Yes, that is the name.
Okay, let me move on to the next group of people on this list are people from the K3 office, and I have a few questions for you. If you look at the next group of people after the 16 from K1.
It is now appropriate time for a short break. The chamber takes a break now and resume at 10:30. Court officer, please assist the witness during the break time and invite him as well as his duty counsel back into the courtroom at 10:30. The court is now in recess.